Welcome back to Sex in Space, where we explore sex across all of its infinite dimensions. We were thrilled to be joined today by the wonderful Susan Bratton, an intimacy expert to millions, an orgasmanaut, and an advocate for those who want passion and intimacy their whole life long. As part of her work, Susan has created a whole bunch of techniques that transform having sex into making love, and she's also the best-selling author and publisher of 44 books. Let's get into the episode. Welcome, Susan. Susan Bratton, thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm very excited to talk with you.
Hi, Toshi. I'm so glad to talk to you. It's really nice to meet you. I've been to New Zealand, FYI, and I love it.
Okay.
I've been there a couple times, and it's funny, we were just talking about how gorgeous New Zealand is last night and how it suits us because we like to surf and ski and dive and do all kinds of wonderful things and have hot sex.
Yes.
Which is why I'm here today, because I'm not a therapist. I don't sit in an office and deal with people's problems. I write hot sex techniques and bedroom communication skills. And so I'm really happy to talk about orgasmic, co-creative, passionate pleasure with you today.
And now you are known as an orgasmanaut.
Yeah.
And so can you talk to us a bit about what that is and what that means?
Yes. So I kind of made that up because I have been a sexpert for decades. And because I'm not a therapist, and what I am really is an author of passionate lovemaking techniques, I've written 44 books and programs and published the work of many of my mentors who came before me. And so I'm kind of a person who really likes to work with people who have a level of insight that is profound around orgasm. And one of my mentors, Dr. Patty Taylor, was the woman from whom I learned a technique called the expanded orgasm practice. And I'd love to talk about that on the show if you want to.
Yeah.
But basically, orgasms, a lot of people think that orgasms are this, like you go up, you have your climax, and then you fall off the cliff. And then you have to wait to have another one for some refractory period. And that's actually very kind of old data from Masters and Johnson in the 1960s. So that's like 60 years old kind of stuff. And we're still working under that assumption. But actually, orgasms, and all human bodies can have over 20 kinds of orgasms.
Wow.
And the orgasms are kind of three types. There's locations to touch, there are techniques to use, and there are objects of desire to instigate orgasm. And one of the techniques to use is this notion of expanded orgasm. An expanded orgasm is different than that climactic refractory model that most people think is an orgasm. And you know how it is. If you think that's what an orgasm is, that's what you're going to have. If I told you an orgasm was something totally different and you're like, holy shit, I didn't know that, you'd start having those. And so that's basically what I like to do, is explain that there are single orgasms like that climactic orgasm. There are multiple climactic orgasms, but there are also orgasms that are extended orgasms. So you can go into the moment of orgasm and you can extend the time of the climax. And some guys would say, well, is that edging? It's not really. Edging is going up to the point of orgasm, but not going over, because they're still thinking the old refractory construct. It's more like you go into the orgasm and then you just ride the orgasm. It's like big wave riding.
Okay.
But then there's expanded orgasms, and sometimes I call them quantum orgasms because they are essentially a series of orgasms that get longer and more intense the more of them you have in an orgasmic session. And they're created through a very light clitoral stroking technique. And it's kind of a form like yoga or, martial arts, where it leverages the way our human operating system works to get us to go into this incredible, like, it keeps getting bigger and better, bigger and better, bigger and better experience. And I remember when I was learning that technique from Dr. Patty Taylor, one of my main mentors, I said to her, I'm scared. I feel like if I go out there and I let go, I could lose myself, or maybe I won't come back, or I feel like I'm out at the edge of outer space, standing on a ledge in the dark, and I'm afraid to step off. And she goes, step off. Go. You'll come back. Could take you a few hours to recover. But you'll get better at recovery too.
Yeah.
There's that old fuck brain thing, you know. And so I stepped off. And that was the moment that I became an orgasmanaut, where I said, okay, I want to go into the uncharted territory of human orgasmic potential, and I want to have every kind of orgasm there possibly can be, and I want to be like the best comer on the planet, in the star system, in the solar system, and that's what I have done over the last couple of decades. So my interest is orgasmic co-creative pleasure. I like solo orgasms, but what I like is how do we have the most incredible orgasms together. And the thing that's nice about it is that, you know, I'm 63 next week, and I'm having the best sex of my life.
Amazing.
And I didn't even have an orgasm from intercourse till I was 42.
Wow.
And I struggled a bit to have orgasms the first 20, 30 years of my life. But I just kept trying to figure it out and figure it out. And what's great now is that I until I was in my 40s, I never even met somebody like Dr. Patty Taylor. She's retired now, and I'm carrying on her legacy. But now we have access to a lot more information. I've written 44 books and programs on step-by-step how to have all these orgasms. I've written how to have every single of the 20 plus kinds of orgasms.
Incredible.
You can literally go to my website and read them for free. And so people today don't have to wait till they're in their 40s to have the kind of sex that it took me that long to get to. And what's nice is that I learned those things, and the minute I heard how to do it, I just was able to start doing it. It's like, sex is not difficult. You just need to know what to go for. So that's why I call myself an orgasmanaut.
I think it's very fitting that we have you on the Sex and Space podcast when you're an
I'm
orgasmanaut.
so excited. I know. I'm like, oh, that's the perfect show for me.
And I think what I'm really excited to talk with you about today is about how we can access those kind of knowledge and those tips earlier in life, so that when we're younger, we can start having the sex that we want to be having, you know, before we get, you know, 4 decades into our life.
Let's go.
And so I think a good thing to ask you now, because we were talking earlier before we started recording, you've been giving advice to someone in your life about, you know, about sex. And I wondered if you could share that story with us and share the kind of messages that you've been sharing with him.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because I have a 27-year-old daughter. And I've raised her talking to her about sex and, you know, like everything. And there's nothing I can't say to her and nothing she can't say to me, which is great. And she recently had one of her girlfriends over. And her girlfriend said, hey, would you mind if I sat down with you and talk to you a little bit about sex? And I'm like, of course. And then her adorable Aussie boyfriend shows up and he's like, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about sex while I'm here. And I'm like, great. So I've been talking to a 24-year-old and a 27-year-old about sex in the last couple of weeks. And there were a couple of things. One was that my daughter's girlfriend felt like she might be asexual because sex just wasn't ever good for her. And so she thought maybe it was her. And that is a very, very common thing, that when you are the blind leading the blind and things aren't going that well, you think maybe it's you and there's something wrong with you. That also happens later in life when a couple, like a monogamous couple's been together for a long time and she's avoiding her partner for sex, and he doesn't understand why, because it feels so good to him, but she doesn't really get much out of it, and so she doesn't really like it very much, and it's because she's never had an orgasm from intercourse, but he keeps wanting intercourse, and And she says, well, I guess I'm just not the kind of woman who can have an orgasm from intercourse. And he goes, I guess you're not, but we still got to do it. And that's really common too. Like, women think it's them. And the reason that women think it's them is that we are immersed in a patriarchal sexual structure that does not serve female pleasure. And that's not guys' fault. It is not. It is just that we are beginning to understand that we have wildly different arousal patterns and ways that we need things to be to have sex. And we've basically only ever seen in movies, erotica, pornography, any kind of lame-ass sex education we might have happened to receive, that just that masculine view. A religious, repressed, masculine, heteronormative, cisgender view. And that's rapidly changing now, which is super exciting for me because I like to talk about matriarchal perspectives on sex. What does a woman's body need? Because men want to give women as much pleasure as they possibly can. They don't mean to be selfish. It's literally, they just don't know what they don't know, and neither do we. And then we take it on as our fault. That's what we women do. We think it's us. And so I'm just trying to right all those wrongs in as many ways and places as I can. So thank you for having me on the show, because podcasting is one of the is the only bastion of uncensored conversation around sexuality. I'm censored everywhere. And what I teach is passionate lovemaking, not pornography, the opposite of it. 96% of pornography shows acts of degradation to women. It's not what we want. And yet young women are being raised and young men are being raised, young people across the gender spectrum. I'm an equal opportunity sparkle pony, lover, being raised to think that that's what sex is. And so what I talked to my daughter's girlfriend about was, she's not broken. There are things to learn. That her responses, if she was getting what she needed, would be very, very satisfying. And that the number one thing to do would be to slow way down, to begin to really listen to her body and her needs in the moment, especially the feminine. It runs on a 28-day moon cycle. And so it wants very different things every single day, every single moment. It really needs, it's like a wild horse that must be given its head. And the masculine is a bit more steady state, just a bit more, not terribly. Because we're all victims of our sleep cycles, our sugar, our stress, our nutrition, our energy, everything, our emotions, etc. And then what I talked to my daughter's boyfriend about was, I said, okay, here's the big picture. This is like top down, 10,000 feet. Here's what you're going for. The very first thing is that sex is a three-legged stool. A stable stool has three legs. It's the least tippy, and it is, number one, sex communication. And there is a ladder that you must climb to get good at sex communication by learning the foundations and building on top. It's a foundational experience. And I can come back and circle back to that. You can take me back wherever you want to go. I like to lay out that big picture. The second leg of the stool is technique. And technique is pleasuring skills. Understanding how the body loves to be pleasured. Number three is intimate wellness. And that's everything from really understanding your genital anatomy, your arousal, how your libido ebbs and flows, along with any issues that you have, whether that's safe sex, contraception, yeast infections and BVIs, prostate issues, erectile dysfunction, all of that stuff goes in there too. So then when I talked to him about the bedroom communication, I said the single most important thing that you can do to have a great sex life is to always be open to asking for anything that you want, listening to your partner, giving them feedback, and accepting their feedback, their requests, their conversation in a way that you don't collapse and feel like you did something wrong, but instead you look at all communication as feedback to make you get better rather than failure, like you did something wrong. Because the masculine's orientation, men live in a pecking order world. They're not teamwork oriented like women are. They're not community minded. They're territorial. It's just it's a byproduct of both nature and nurture, culture and testosterone and things like that. But they tend to not like to get feedback because they go, ugh, I didn't do it right. Now I've gone down. Now I'm wrong. I'm bad. And what men want is to win. They want to be winners and they want to be respected for a job well done. And so getting feedback takes them some training to be able to see that it actually benefits them. And they must say, thank you, got it, how's this? Acknowledgement of their partner, encouragement of her or they to give the person what they need to do a good job. So I talked to him about starting with that, and just to kind of like parking lot that for your listeners and viewers, I have written that technique. It's called the Sexual Soulmate Pact, P-A-C-T, like an agreement. It's at sexualsoulmatepact.com. It's a downloadable PDF that walks you through exactly how to create this dynamic where the conversation just really flows. And what I have found is that I have trained my partners. I'm primarily heterosexual. I'm just a little bit, I'm bisexual personally, but I mostly sleep with men myself. And so I've had to train a lot of men over the years to be my lover and to be able to be in this construct of giving feedback and allowing them to graciously accept it. And I can tell you that I've had a range of experiences with that, with some guys who get it almost immediately and they're like, oh God, I fucking love this. This is great. Tell me everything. And other guys that I can't get them to thank me for telling them what I need. They're stubborn. They're a little slow. They're donkeys. They're little donkeys. And I won't let them off the hook.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with someone who doesn't appreciate and acknowledge my requests. Nor would I want to be with I wouldn't want to be that lover. And so I have found that there are a few people over the years that I've really had to be like, I need you to say thank you. Like they're in training. Because you are always training your partner, whether you're doing it implicitly or explicitly. And I like explicit training. Hey, what if it fucks up the mood for a second? I mean, if you can't get over it, like, I'm not going to invite you back. You got to be able to roll with communication and not take it personally. And sometimes, guys, it is a painful lesson for them. But once they get it, they're incredible lovers. And so I'm willing to persist. I've never failed, but I have had to persevere at times. But once you you don't shirk your duties of being a good trainer. And once you do that and you kind of establish your expectation, like this is like boundaries 101, frankly, you know? I think boundaries get a bad rap, like there's some kind of like line in the sand or something, but they're actually like exactly what I need for you to love me to my fullest extent and to make me feel relaxed and comfortable. So let's just play right up to those edges. But just knowing that you won't go over an edge allows me the relaxation that I need to feel the excitement rising. And one of those things that I need is acknowledgement of my requests, verbal acknowledgement of my requests. Not forever until I know that I can just say anything and you just adjust, but in the beginning for sure. And so I really feel like anybody who is like, well, tell me more other stuff I can do. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you more stuff, but don't think that you can just skip over that. I just gave you the best thing you could ever learn about sex, acknowledge it, make a commitment to yourself. All right, I'm going to learn how to do that. So I'm going to go download that sexual soulmate pact. I'm going to lay that base in, man, because then I want to get to all those sex techniques and all the other stuff. But if that's what I have to do to become a great lover, I'll do it. You know, it's like people can be like, whatever, okay, what else, you know, but I'm literally giving you the frickin' keys to the kingdom with that one thing, you know? So I just want to like double down, not to just skip over it in your busy world of more, that sometimes that can be enough.
Well, that's the foundation too, I think. And, you know, you can have as many amazing sex tips as you would like in the world, but if you don't have a way to communicate with the person that you're with about that you want that or how you want to go about that, you can't achieve it. You do, you know? So I think communication and having those skills is a bit like giving someone a rule book and saying, you know, this is what I need and this is how it works for me. This is the recipe. This is my recipe.
This is the game. This is how the game is played.
Yeah.
Well, this is the higher game.
Yeah.
The higher game is acknowledging each other's desires, needs, wants in the moment. I agree.
And coming back to the sex letter, I wondered if you could walk us through that in a bit more detail.
So, number one thing is the sexual soulmate pact. And then you get into essentially one of the components of the sexual soulmate pact is also knowing what you want. A lot of people are like, I don't know what I want. I just know what I'm getting isn't it. And a part of that is we have, you know, we say we have like 6 senses, 5 senses, 6 senses. We have a lot of senses. And one of the senses that we have is something called interoception. Proprioception is where is my body in space? Interoception is what am I feeling inside my body? So like everybody knows that you can feel when you have to fart but you can't because you're in a small room full of people or whatever. Yeah. Like, no, I'm in an elevator and I gotta fart, you know. That's interoception.
Okay. That's a very good way to explain.
I know. And you do always know what you want. You just have to listen to your body. Your body will know, oh, I'm not turned on yet. Oh, I would like my boobies squeezed harder. Oh, I would like him to stick his tongue down my throat deeper. Oh, that's too. Ooh, his beard is scratching me. Oh God, there's a big long hair hanging off the bottom of the shaft of his penis while I'm giving him a blowjob. Oh, I gotta have him get up and go nick that thing off. You know, like gross. Yeah. You know, he can't tell there's a hair hanging down there. You know.
Yeah.
So that interoception. And then being able to verbalize it. And my girlfriend, Dr. Deborah Kagan, she has a great podcast called Mojo. Let me know if you ever want to have her on your show. She talks about how the vaginal lips and the lips on your mouth are basically very, very similar. You just have to give voice to your lips of your yoni.
Yeah.
And you have to speak for her. And so you're basically just listening to her. She's talking to you all the time. And you have to speak for her with your upper lips. And I really like that analogy as well. And the more that you begin to put into words what your body is asking for and wanting, the more and the more comfortable you are with your partner doing that and speaking up for yourself and advocating for your own desires and wishes, then that's kind of level 2. Level 1 is you got to teach them, you know, like how to make it safe for you to do that. Number 2 is do it. And then yeah. And then the next one above that is like adoration and appreciation and encouragement. And those are more just like, that feels really good. Do not stop until I say so. Or, you know, whatever, any of those kinds of things. Just that kind of like encouragement, which I think is really, really important for both people. Or 3 people, or 4 people, or however many people you're having sex with at one time. And then the next thing is moaning, actually making sound. And I would even put that into kind of like the whole Oh God, like biofeedback of all kinds, right? There's a lot of ways you can express yourself that aren't even auditory, like squeezing
Yeah.
or moving a hand or pulling them close or grabbing their hair in the nape of their neck or pinning them down or, that's feedback,
Yeah.
right? That's a
Yeah.
communication right there.
Yes.
And it's hot. So there's that. And then there's like telling dirty stories while you're having sex. Like one of my very favorite things to do with my husband is to get on him cowgirl style, woman on top, facing him and ride him, take my pleasure on him while I am telling him some super dirty fantasy that I know is going to totally turn him on. I like to drive him wild. And he loves that because he's very auditory in his kinesthetic state of pleasure. So that's a lot of fun. And I'd say that's kind of next. And then there's fantasy sharing where you're actually like asking for something that you really want, right? Stating desires confidently and comfortably. So not just telling stories that are make-believe, but actually coming up with things that aren't. And then there's, of course, sexting and dirty talk and things like that. And then there's pillow talk, which is just soft and sweet and intimate and loving and adorable. And we need a lot of that. And then there's something I call, and I learned this from Dr. Patty, it's called sharing favorite frames. And it is after you make love. It could be done right after while you're in your post-coital glow, or it could be later, anytime you're going to the grocery store together, it doesn't matter. And you just explain to your partner one body-based moment that was super hot to you from the last time you had sex.
Okay.
So like, it was super hot when we were lying on our sides face to face and we were making out and you were like playing with one nipple. I was stroking your cock and you had your hand wrapped behind me and you had your fingers inside me. And we just were like making everything go crazy. And it just was really getting me turned on. Like that. Oh,
Yeah.
that was your favorite part? Oh, yeah, I like that. Corporeally descriptive, like descriptive of how your body felt. Less about emotion and more about the physical. Like I loved it when your finger was inside me and the way you were just pressing. It just felt so good or whatever like that. So that they can get, because they'll be like, oh, that was your favorite part? Well, here's my favorite part. And you're like, oh my God, that was your favorite part? You wouldn't know. And so that makes it kind of like you get to relive it all over again.
Yeah.
And that's really fun too. So that's somewhat of an ascension model.
And I think too with that last part as well, being able to, talk about what you really liked and sort of relive it together, that also in itself is a form of communication and reinforcing like, this is what I enjoy. And again, adding to that kind of recipe book of sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you too, because something that you've spoken about is relationship values.
Yes.
And I wanted for people out there who are wondering, how do I work out what my relationship values are? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, well, I have a workbook. It's at myrelationshipmagic.com. Really what my husband and I learned when we were first embarking on this journey of opening our sexuality was that he'd been kind of treating me the way he wanted to be treated, and I was treating him the way I wanted to be treated, and we're very different people. Like, we couldn't be more different, but we're very compatible. And so we needed to start treating each other the way we wanted to be treated. So the golden rule is to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and that all's well and good, except not in a relationship. What you want is the platinum rule of relationship, which is treat your partner the way they want to be treated and vice versa. But what is that? What do you want? And a lot of times people haven't really put it into succinct, descriptive language that the partner can understand. And it's really based on what it is you value in being in a relationship. Why are you in a relationship? And part of it you can get to by, the workbook takes you through this process. It's very easy. It's called a values elicitation, and you rank order the things that are most important to you. And it's not that typical thing that women have where they're like, I want him to be tall and handsome and wealthy and, it's none of that. It's more about, well, I really want to be kept safe, but I need a lot of freedom. I really want to have great sex that keeps getting better. I really care about spirituality or faith, or I really want to have, my family is very important to me, or, traveling and seeing the world is important to me, or, hey, I want to make a lot of money. I need somebody who's devoted to making sure we're not poor. I don't want to be poor. I want to be rich. Whatever your things are. And, so like if you wanted to be rich and you were ambitious and you were with a partner who was like, why are you worried about that all the time? Like, we have enough. We're fine. It wouldn't be a good match. Or you had a partner who was like, you go make the money. I'll manage it. Because I want to be rich too, but I don't know how to make it, and you do. You're like a friggin' rainmaker. You go make the money, and let me just hold on to it all for us and invest it, and make sure that it's that we are growing our nest egg. Whatever it is. If you don't know what you want, you can't ask for it. Your partner can't give it to you.
Yeah.
And so, what does security mean to you? Well, it means that I have good tires on my car, that my cars are in good condition. I'm never going to be stranded. I have a burglar alarm in my house that I can set so I don't get robbed. If we're at a party, my safe word is stripes. So if I say to you, oh, I thought you were going to wear your striped shirt, and I look at you with those really bug eyes, that the person I'm standing with is annoying the shit out of me, and you got to move me out of there.
Yeah.
Whatever your things are, you work up your little things. And so I really think relationship magic is important because too many times couples end up getting out of relationships because of sex or money. And most of it could be avoided by getting a good sex education and understanding what you want and what your goals are, and really supporting your partner in achieving those things. So relationship values really helps you understand yourself. And what's interesting is that a lot of it is also think back on times when you had what were some things that you loved about a past relationship? What were some of the things that you hated? And so what you loved was meeting your values. What you hated was not.
Yeah.
And so that helps you frame them too. So you can be very specific about things.
Knowing what you know now from all the work that you've done, if there was something that you could go and tell your 20-year-old self about sex and intimacy or communication or relationship values,
easy.
What message would you have?
Yeah. It would be that your sexuality is vast. It gets better over time if you keep trying new things. And one of the things that I like is to have couples not just have sex, but to have erotic playdates.
Okay.
And this is good for singletons on the first night they're together, and it's good for people who've been together for 50 years. It doesn't matter. Your sex life, the monotony of monogamy, it gets boring if you do the same thing all the time. You need variety, novelty. That's what you need. And so I put together 48 erotic playdates that you can do, a lot of them as a solo, even if you're not with a partner. And there are plenty of partner pleasure playdates in there. It's at sexlifebucketlist.com. And it's 2 decades of me coming up with all kinds of fun things people could learn together in the bedroom, like the 20 kinds of orgasms is just one thing. The expanded orgasm practice, female ejaculation, male multiple orgasm, using sex toys during lovemaking. I mean, there's just the list goes on and on. Sensation toys. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And what's really fun is if you go to sexlifebucketlist.com, what you get is a PDF download, and you get a video from me a 40-minute video of a guided visualization where I walk you through the 48 play dates, and you have this printout in front of you, and you mark each one of them with an A, a B, or a C. A is, oh, I'm definitely putting this on my bucket list. B is, hey, it wouldn't be for me, but if Toshi wants to do it, I'm totally down to do it with her. And if she needs me to fluff her up with some fun mitts while I've blindfolded her, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then and then C's are, it's not for me right now. Never say never, because as you mature and gain more skills, it's really just about trying shit. That's really what you got to keep doing, is being like, well, today let's find my G-spot. Today let's try a cock ring. Today let's do this. Today let me try doing a deep throat blowjob and make myself have an orgasm. Whatever it is. And a lot of the things on the bucket list will be things that people were like, I did not even know that was a thing, and now it's all I can think about.
Interesting. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like a never-ending learning process, isn't it? Because there's always more things that you can try, more things that you can do.
I'm still learning things all the time. And it's literally what I do for a living. Sex 24/7.
And just before we wrap up the podcast, I wanted to ask, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners, or a question that I haven't asked you that you wish I'd asked and you want to share your answer to that? Is there anything on your mind?
I thought we did a good job before we pressed record, really kind of sussing out what it was that we wanted to talk about. And I think we've answered those questions. Sex is a lifelong skill. The communication is the place to start, adding the techniques as you go, finding your areas of interest, learning new things together, sharing favorite frames, encouraging each other. We've covered quite a bit of territory. The 20 kinds of orgasms, 21 kinds of orgasms the human body can have. I mean, that's a pretty vast landscape that we've covered in our 45 minutes. So I feel quite satisfied that people are probably full, and I'm just so happy to be here with you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Susan. And just for our listeners, I'll be putting all of those links in the description so that you can find Susan and the work that she's doing, and you can go and read her books, and you can, work through all those techniques. And we hope that you can take something from them, and that your sex life will get infinitely better. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Toshi.
We really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Before we sign off, we wanted to ask you for your help. Because we talk about sex, we keep getting shadow banned across a lot of social media platforms. And this not only makes it hard for us to be found, but it says that sex is not okay to talk about. Not only is sex okay to talk about, it's totally essential, because more knowledge equals better outcomes across a whole bunch of measures for all of us. You can make a difference, and the thing that we need from you is your active support. So please follow the podcast and sign up to our socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whichever you like. You can find us over on sexandspace.com and click on our social links from there. Help us make sex an okay space. Thank you for taking this Sex and Space trip with us. Until next time, safe travels, and we'll see you on the next intergalactic episode.